listen.
You don't get to bamboozle us every time.
Because my microphone sucks. That's why. Because Windows hates my microphone. That's why.
Well, we realize that Ben has some atrocious opinions. Ben, would you like to repeat yourself and then defend yourself?
Well, I just don't see what Oh, okay. I've seen the movie before. I've seen A Knight's Tale before. But I don't get why people like it. It's good in what it's trying to do. I'll grant you that, but it's a very small movie. It's very
what's not to like, Ben?
Okay,
what's not to like?
What?
Let me just ask Ben. Okay, so if it achieves what it's trying to do, if it's good at what it's trying to do, presumably people who really like that movie, like us, then it would be a very good movie because it's good at what it's trying to do, right? You just said that.
Sure, I'll agree that A Knight's Tale is not trying to be very much, but that's kind of the problem. It was mostly boring for an hour and a half. As I remember the big payoff.
How the fuck is it boring?
You're hitting people with a stick on a horse. What's boring about that?
Were you watching a black and white version of the movie? Was you from the 30s?
Turns out it's actually a reboot. The original one was made in 1928.
This had Heath Ledger and Queen twice. Okay, so no, don't worry. This well,
how is it boring? It starts out with they're fucked because they haven't eaten in 3 days, and the guy, all they need to do is sit on a horse and is dead. And God, I love the opening dialogue of that. His spirit is gone, but his stench remains. He's what is the actual phrase? I've got that up here.
There's something about shit in pants or something.
Yeah. I was going to say the key takeaway is that he shit himself to death. Though,
that's why it smelled so bad. The spark of his life is covered in shite because he had the nose things and everything. And as soon as Watt walks up, it's like all he has to do is sit on the horse. Oh God, what's that smell?
I like the he takes the paper out of his nose and hands it over.
Yeah.
It's like left, right.
I know, right?
That's really what matters.
But it is kind of funny because that's the kind of superstition you'd get from the time, right? It doesn't matter that we're sharing snot rags as long as they're going the correct side. So I think part of the genius of the movie, right, and getting into some of the trivia and liking some of it afterwards was the fact that they used Queen and stuff like that, is that the director was like, I'm not blend the music, right? Because you've got the dance scene, for example, where it starts out with the old medieval melodies and then it slides right into Bowie because he's trying to portray them as they would see themselves, not necessarily as we would see them looking back, right? So for them, this was their jam. This is the king's court or whatever. It's the Lord's court, right? So you getting the finest music. We're at the joust. It's the goddamn motherfucking Super Bowl, dude. So of course we're going to play We Will Rock You. And of course we're going to play Charge, which is a little on the nose, so they didn't use it here, right? But I mean, you've been to a sporting event once. You know what the soundtrack's going to sound like. And that was one of the things, is he does it anachronistic where it's he used real armor sets. He used real knights from real history and all of this other stuff. He just kind of modernized it and made it approachable, which is some of the art behind the scenes going into it that makes it even better.
All this stuff is stuff that Moulin Rouge did the same year. And
no,
better.
Shut up. How the fuck are you going to compare this movie to Moulin Rouge? What is wrong with you?
Are you kidding?
You can't make
just enough. How is there even remotely a baseline where these two movies approach to be comparable?
The use of anachronistic modern music to achieve the effect in contemporary audiences what would have been felt at the time.
Okay, so that is one
that's
thing.
That's what you were just praising.
You're right, Ben.
That's what you were just praising.
The bread here is shit compared to the cake because they both use sugar for the same effect. Fucking no, Ben. One ingredient does not make them comparable, my dude. They both take place in France. You could go with that one. But just the fact that they both use modern music in an actor's...
That's literally what you're just praising it for. That's literally...
Justin, I love the enthusiasm, but you cannot do this to our listeners. It's really bad.
I'm going to fume in silence. Ben, just fill in the expletives, all right?
It's a legitimate disagreement. I don't want to ruin your life or anything. I just
anyone is listening to this, not watching the video, Justin was miming his rage.
He's been broken. He's been pushed over the edge. You cannot criticize this movie that much, apparently.
Okay. And they did come out the same year, Ben, so we can compare them on that too, right?
Yeah,
Give me a break. Moulin Rouge, of all the shit that you could pull out of the entire history of movies to compare it to, that's what you went with. Like,
well,
I mean, we already realized with some of the suggestions Brendan's been coming with, his tastes are different than our tastes. The most thing I would say.
How does it feel, Andreas, to be somebody with different tastes and to not understand somebody else with such wildly different tastes?
I mean, but I'm right and he's wrong.
That's what I say all the time. Oh man,
well, I don't want that.
No, but
so praise the movie. I'll
opposition is good. It's fine. It's great. That's why we have EG.
If that needs to defend their stances because the director made some wild claims.
But then you say that about The Knight's Tale too. I want to disagree. It is just like I love them both.
I have seen A Knight's Tale a lot of times, but it's been a few years, so I was happy we did this. I mean, it's really great. There's some things like. One thing I particularly noticed,
they're also nobody for the time, like with a few exceptions, don't get me wrong, but like seriously, I think this is literally Alan Tudyk's first movie, his breakout role, right? And even still, we're several years before the Joker and things like that. So,
yeah. I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You was probably, I haven't looked it up, I would imagine it was a much more commercially successful movie than A Knight's Tale.
Probably.
And A Knight's Tale received very mixed to medium reviews when it came out.
Wow.
But it's really grown to, like, I always
all the critics are Ben. They were comparing it to Moulin Rouge, so.
It's like, how do you have modern music in this ancient setting? Was it because it fucking worked?
That's also what, I don't watch,
That's not what people. Okay, keep up.
Knight's Tale made almost twice as much money as 10 Things I Hate About You.
That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's good too.
117 million versus 60 million. So
how much did they spend on each movie?
Well, I mean, come on.
That's also
like he just had to show up in his regular clothes for 10 Things I Hate About You, and they've got plate mail and horses in the other one, right? Like and they're all practical effects, but
it's just that I think 10 Things I Hate About You might still have been more profitable, is what I was thinking. But I'm glad that Knight's Tale made more money. That it was more popular, I guess, even if it cost more to make. And it's very niche, right? Nice. We haven't gotten a lot of these, like, you take some era setting and modernize it a bit with like some music and stuff like it. We don't do that a lot. They're a lot of the medieval movies, they're more period correct and they're music and things and most of them are also a lot more I would say boring because I don't watch a movie for the historical accuracy.
Yeah, it depends on what you're going for. I mean, this is a movie of fun.
What other medieval movies have you seen, Andreas? Sorry,
I can't remember. Braveheart, I guess, is medieval.
Is it?
I mean,
why do I even hang out with you guys? Like, I mean, Braveheart's actually pre-medieval era, isn't it? Because aren't we still dealing with the? Well, I guess it is the Brits. Then it's not like the Romans masquerading as Brits or whatever.
What else? 13th Warrior, I think. Alexander, which was boring as fuck.
Yeah, this is.
You guys not understand how genres work? I'm pretty sure we've had some of those fights before. Like, again, how do you compare Knight's Tale to 13th Warrior?
Yeah,
like,
they're not.
You ask if they were. You should ask for medieval movies.
So, to a certain extent, this is why I feel compelled to compare The Mummy and Knight's Tale because it has the mix of like there's serious and then there's goofy and then blended together perfectly.
And that's what we talked about, right? Like in the pre-show, I was like, okay, I can kind of see how we might make a comparison because they both take themselves so seriously, and yet you've still got these funny moments in them. And, you know, like even Alan Tudyk, like one of my favorite trivia moments is him like doing that. It's called a lance. Hello. And he whiffed that line like a dozen times to the point where like all the cast just felt bad for him. And they're like, dude, we're just going to move on to the next scene. He's like, no, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And then finally it came to him. And it's like, could you imagine like that, you know, like even the director was like, the thing that I wrote was pretty shit. So I'd asked him to do better, but like nobody liked what Alan Tudyk was bringing to the table until he finally delivered that line and they all lost it. And they're like, finally, that's going in the movie. So. One
of these articles that you found of it when it was being produced is like when he was threatening Chaucer, he was basically breaking up into laughing, which worked so well because it just made the character, he's trying to be threatening and he can't be threatening because he just kind of loses composure. It's like pain.
Well, for
lots
me,
of pain.
Yeah, I think I just see the character like lose himself in the rage, right, and get choked up. Exactly. Like I get choked up with Ben, so I'll thong you, Ben.
So your entrails are out.
Entrails, yeah. So.
Yeah. I don't know how I came across this movie because I was pretty young at the time. Like if it came out in 2001, I would have been 7 or 8. I do remember that we had it on VHS and I watched it so often and I had to rewind it. I know. I rewinded it so much. I remember the commercials that were added in before it.
Wow.
It's like as soon as I started watching it again, it's like, oh, I have all these memories of like EverQuest 1 being on it was so heavily watched when I was a kid.
Yeah. Braveheart, 13th century, by the way. So yes, it could have somehow been contemporary to all this nonsense. So
yeah, like
while Prince Edward is fucking around at the jousts, Braveheart's up there fighting for independence. So
oh god, are they supposed to be the same person?
But maybe, I mean,
no, like you know,
the Prince of Wales was a character in Braveheart, and then that's also supposed to be the Black Prince of Wales.
I mean, but you just
Knight's Tale isn't exactly perfectly like, oh, we slotted it in here, right?
No,
in fact, they don't give us a time frame. They borrow knights from all over, but I do remember like one of the knights named was like 14th century. Some of the armor comes from various centuries and stuff like that as well. But
I mean, I don't think you should really get hung up on that because in terms of that, it's not very accurate.
Well, and I mean, Queen didn't even make accurate. We Will Rock You until like the 19, so.
Yeah. So I just think you shouldn't use how they're dressed as, it happened around this time because they're like their costumes all over the place.
What's inaccurate about the costumes? I thought the costumes were relatively.
So the music is a problem, but you're okay with costumes.
Well, no. I didn't say the music was a problem at all.
I'm not saying.
Do you remember the way that Jocelyn dressed? Do you think that was
true.
accurate?
That's true. Jocelyn
was not accurate at all.
But I was
I love the way that they dressed her. But
the colors are a bit muted, but this is, if anything, most of the historical aspects were more accurate than something like Braveheart, and which is it's that issue is more egregious than something like Braveheart.
Being more accurate than Braveheart isn't very hard.
That's well, granted, but Braveheart's trying to be this serious epic. But it's got all these anachronistic values in it.
That's why something that is just allowing itself to be goofy on it's just serious things happening. Yes, but like we're doing the thing that we want, and I don't give a fuck. Yes, we're going to play the music that I like, not the music that they liked.
I love Goofy. Yeah, that's fine.
I think the other part of it
I liked.
I think the other part of it is if we're going to compare Braveheart to A Knight's Tale, is that Braveheart is this like romantic view of what happened, and that's where some of the fiction gets brought in and that sort of thing, whereas Knight's Tale is as accurate as it was for some aspects. You got to take them individually because as a whole, obviously all of these centuries didn't blur together, but all of the costumes they did use, with maybe a few exceptions, were there. But A Knight's Tale is a fairy tale. It's a poem. Like the idea, like again from the trivia, like this is Chaucer's missing year. That's they kind of slotted it in there, or at least some people have supposed that's what could have happened, right? Is that Chaucer disappeared for a year in between writing a couple of books, and maybe this is what he was doing or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a fairy tale. He made his own fate. He changed his stars. He fucking jousted one of the deadliest knights in Europe with no fucking armor. and won.
Knocked him
like
off the
that
horse.
because he screamed his name the loudest. So it's that's the thing too. Is like don't get away from the fact that it's like, yeah, okay, it's got all of these production values and all of these good things, but it is at the end of the day a fairy tale as well, a little bit. So like taking William's story especially.
Yeah.
So and I do like how during the movie, like you get some of that, right? Like William is bigger than he is. Like Sir Ulrich is bigger than he is because he's got a team of people behind him. Even writing his love letter to Jocelyn is crowdsourced. Everybody is like, oh yeah, this one time I loved this one girl and I said this one pretty thing. Put that in the letter. So, but. And then having Chaucer behind it all, like behind every good knight, there's a great bard, I guess, so.
And that's another thing that they modernized. It's like he didn't do the stiff, like pretty language. He was wandering around telling fake tales of protecting Italian virginity or spending a year in Greece in silence.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, it was complete bullshit, but who cares? Because it was fun.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Ben. So the point is the movie's got to be perfect, right? So you weren't entertained. Somehow knights in armor hitting each other with lances doesn't do it for you. So not a fan of the joust. Was there anything else that you didn't particularly like?
Well, I think there was this kind of half-hearted treatment of. This is going to sound like a weird critique. From
no.
I think there's a half-hearted use of the religiosity of the period. It was doubling down on this weird mix of blasphemy and impiety, though there's still some sincerity behind it. I don't know. And I think for what it was trying to do, it was actually trying to be fairly accurate while also having translated elements, but I don't think it was completely fair to a depiction of the Middle Ages. But I think what it really is,
it's not fair.
What it really is the version of the Middle Ages that you get from 19th century Romanticism, and appreciated from that angle, it's sort of just Rocky. And then my main issue is that it doesn't really do anything interesting in its cinematography, anything new in what it's trying to do. It's just sort of by the numbers direction, and it has a little bit of a gloss with the nice element of the goofy aesthetic and the and some of the humor and the anachronistic music. I think those elements that are distinct to it work, and everything else beneath it, it's sort of a cheese pizza. I like pizza. It's sort of a cheese pizza. Other
than Moulin Rouge, like I'm not drawing a connection here, right? So like what is it when you're like, oh, this is just like it's cheese pizza? What else in its wheelhouse, or what else is out there that makes it look so bland?
Well, I think something like The Mummy or Pirates of the Caribbean, which you've just looked at, are exactly the kind of movie that this is trying to be, but they double down on the parts that work. And all of those elements work. Whereas this one, it's sort of just. I think the issue is the premise. I don't know that a jousting movie.
It's a sports underdog.
So yeah, so you don't like sports movies, okay?
And maybe that's the issue. Just sort of boring.
And I don't like sports movies either, but I love me some jousting. So
yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, like I don't really care about sports movies. It's clearly going on the same beats as all of those. Whatever, I can't even remember their names, but.
Yeah, exactly. It really is, and I think that would be the heart of what I'd say is the issue. But again, I get how for folks who like that genre, this is a nice little different touch. It's what's going to happen in Hallmark movie too, but those are popular.
Yes.
Oh my God!
You know what's going to happen when you watch
we're going
a
to
mystery.
fight. How the fuck is this a Hallmark movie, dude?
Oh, in that it's by the numbers. That's the line of comparison is in that.
Again, you're saying it's by the numbers, but there isn't anything else in its genre to compare it against, is what I'm telling you, right? You're saying it's by the numbers. What, the sports movie part's by the numbers? Because, in football, they all have full plate and they all take on a knight's persona so that they can come out of the slums and build their own thing. Yeah, sure, it's got components from Moulin Rouge and from sports movies and a love movie and from Braveheart and all of these things, but it still combines to be something its own thing. What are you comparing it to? Ironclad? What other night movies are there, or anything else?
And what I'd say is that the genre is sports movie. The setting is medieval. So you can't really compare by setting, compare things of a different setting. You can't compare things by their genre, by the kinds of stories being told. And this is definitely a sports movie. And among sports movies, it doesn't stand out except by its setting, not by its presentation, sort of maybe by its tone, but it doesn't have kids in it, which is a nice, that's a nice.
They are the kids.
Yeah, most sports movies are literally about children, right? So I mean, if that's what you're looking for, but then what it doesn't use the medieval setting, I think, very strongly. It sort of just uses the medieval setting and then immediately backs away from it by doubling down on the parts that are interesting, which make the anachronism. I don't know. There's some nice.
I feel like you don't understand the movie, and it's like, you're saying things about it, but it's just like somehow it did not translate to you. You are not the target audience for a perfect movie. Go away.
Right? I know, because it's like you keep trying to compare this, but it's like, okay, you know what? It's not the best night movie because it's not perfect. It's not one period. It's not whatever. It's not a perfect sports movie because we don't have the. No, it's not just a sports movie because, again, like that's what I'm trying to tell you right here. I think that like you're comparing some of its subplots and subgenres against like the AAA movie in its class, right? It's not the best anachronistic movie because apparently Moulin Rouge is. It's not the best sports movie because apparently Braveheart is. Now I'm mixing signals here because I'm poking at you, but like you're taking elements of it. It's like it's not the best cake because cupcakes do it better. Like that. I feel like you're picking on the movie's subplots because there are better specialized movies. Like it's not the best pirate movie because Pirates of the Caribbean is. Well, duh. But like taken all together, right? Like Princess Bride isn't the best romance. It's not the best action. It's not the best fantasy, but it is the best all of those in one movie, like because those are all elements of the same special sauce, right? Like I think that's where I'm quibbling with you a little bit because you're trying to pigeonhole this movie as like a sports movie, but that kind of bypasses all the anachronism, that bypasses the romance, that bypasses some of the other themes. Yes, it is a sports movie on a like a bullet grid, right? Where you're like, here are the beats we're going to hit with this movie. Which of the sports movies, like which baseball movie has the person pretending that he's Babe Ruth until he is Babe Ruth? Like maybe Happy Gilmore, we could compare that, right? Because Happy Gilmore is like he's a hockey player turned golfer, right? This guy is a peasant turned a knight. Like that transcends the sports movie. Like in my opinion. So pigeonholing it into a sports movie as a comparison, of course, it's not going to live up to that standard because that's not all that's there. You can't just pull out the sugar and just be like, well, cupcakes are better. You pull out the eggs. Well, quiche is better. You pull out the butter. Well, butter is better. I don't know. But like, I know I'm a little over the place, but like, that's what I'm saying is like, you're pulling these single elements when I think it transcends all of that.
I think if we're sitting here, talking, I'm just having a thought. In many ways, like how he says it's a sports movie. I actually feel like the movie it reminds me of the more if we remove the setting and just take the other element. A lot of it actually makes me think of the first Fast and Furious movie.
Oh, shut up! You're right. I don't care. Go ahead. It's not the Fast and the Furious movie. Go ahead.
a lot of the I feel like there's a lot of the same beats in a way. There's this group of outsiders working together. It's a lot about them. There's this romance plot, kind of like the romance plot in the Fast and Furious. So I just thought, like, if it were to remove things, I feel like I don't know what kind. It's a race movie. Like Fast and Furious was like kind of for me it was like the race movie, right? But it's more than just a race movie. If you know what I mean, and A Knight's Tale is more than just a medieval movie. I guess it's
It's not any one of those things alone. I think is Justin's point, and that's a really important thing. Of like, Princess Bride is not the best action, but the action that was in it was perfect for it.
I don't know. I know it's supposed to be good, but I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen The Princess Bride?
Oh, well,
I think we ripped off that bandage when we talked about Cold Days, and he's like, "What's Princess Bride? What's this quote that Matt said?"
Yeah. It's
no wonder he's comparing it to Fast and Furious.
I know.
You got to watch more than 4 movies, Andreas.
It's just one of the. It's just I don't know. Maybe it's like being from a different country and like age. I don't know, but it's just kind of like none of my friends have seen A Princess Bride really, or like from.
It's true. I got to keep in mind that you and Ben are foreigners, so.
From people like I don't know, it's just kind of slipped by here. I know it's supposed to be a great movie, like really great movie, and I'm gonna watch it. Maybe
because it's on our list. So.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do it on this show. Then that would be cool. But just that's just one of those like really great movies that slipped past. But I mean, a way I think A Knight's Tale, it's put in the title, right? It's a tale. It's an adventure.
It's one of the tales that Chaucer wrote down from the Canterbury Tales, which I haven't read.
Parts of it, but
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, it's in the title. It is a fairy tale. It is the Knight's Tale. It is that Chaucer wrote down, as they hinted at in the end of it. It is fiction. I mean, they pulled some of these specific lines out. Apparently, some of the dialogue that sounds so cheesy when you look at it written, and then he delivered it so well. It was from
that's done well.
Yeah, and then like Simon the Summoner and Peter the Pardoner, that were like the people who were making him naked again for gambling. They were actual people from the book.
I mean, this is cool. This is cool if you care about looking into that. I didn't know about that. I don't, and it's not historically accurate, so it doesn't. That's not the cool part about the movie, in my opinion. That doesn't. So, it's not really relevant.
So you like the historical accuracies?
No, I don't like historical. That's what I'm saying. I don't care about. She's bringing up these were real people and stuff, and I'm just saying that doesn't really matter to me.
I'm saying that they were real fictional people.
I don't know. I didn't even know that Chaucer was actually a guy who wrote things.
Okay, I'm having that moment from the damn movie. You don't know who Geoffrey Chaucer is.
No.
You know who Paul Bettany is?
Yeah, and he's the character I like the most in the movie by a mile.
Fantastic character. That's hard to decide on who's the best character from the movie.
Nope, it's not. It's him.
I mean, he's up there, but Watt really sold it for me.
Yeah, right. Like, Watt, you couldn't just have a movie with Watt or Chaucer at the end of the day. I mean, that's kind of my thing, right? But they are integral to the movie.
I mean, both of them did. Like, the amount of skill it took out of both of them to deliver these characters so well in their different ways, of like Chaucer, and the tremendous amount of charisma it takes to do those scenes of it when he's doing the heraldry well, compared to playing Watt, who is an idiot in the perfect amount of idiot goofiness, fitting the setting and fitting everything else. It's like, I wouldn't be able to bet that anyone else would be able to do what Alan Tudyk did with that character. It'd be hard for me to think of another one who fits that type of character role and did it just as well.
Ernest. No. Like from the Ernest movies? Like
who?
Oh my goodness.
Don't bother. We're not doing that on this show.
There's like, hold on, it's an old thing. I know this
Justin,
one.
the microphone.
Oh my God.
I mean, Roland was really good, and he did also some of the good lines, but he was the kind of interstitial glue that between Chaucer and Watt, and like he was a little bit more of the straight man, normal person, a little bit.
Yeah, he was the straight guy for sure. So yeah.
And
a funny anecdote there with Paul Bettany is it's amazing to me how he kills it in A Knight's Tale.
Yes.
And 8 years later, his career is over before Iron Man somehow. Like literally,
Right.
he was fired from his agency before he got the call to voice Jarvis. They were like, "You're unhireable. It's over."
I don't understand. He's an actor.
And I don't understand. So
if I know that
here,
he's in something, I am tempted to watch it just because of that.
Yeah,
Because
that's what
of this
it's like.
movie.
It's insane to me, right? Because when I look, it's so weird. Because when I look at his filmography from 2000, from A Knight's Tale, he's been in some pretty good movies. I haven't watched all of them, but well, and one of the ones that I do know and where I thought again he killed that role was like in the Da Vinci Code, for example.
Oh, he did.
I think
do a very
he
good
did
job on
that
the role.
really good. And he's been in the Master and Commander, Beautiful Mind.
That's an amazing movie. That's on the list.
Yeah, but in that time, apparently, and being in some good movies, like he's told this story many times. When he got the call for Jarvis, he had literally just been like let go from his agency, and they said you're unhireable.
Well,
so that's just amazing to me.
They get to see all of his success now, and wish they had kept him hired.
Because he is one of those actors like, oh, Paul Bettany said, I'll check it out.
Yes.
And that was the reason he is one of those is A Knight's Tale. For me, that's why he's one of those actors.
Minor topic change on this movie. This movie is probably the one that did the montages the best out of anything I've seen. I cannot think of another movie that actually enjoyed the montages as much as I do out of The Knight's Tale.
Like training montages.
Or the fighting montages, or the
dancing too. Was that a montage? I don't know.
No, I wouldn't call that a montage. It was just dancing. But then there's winning all the time, and award when he deliberately loses to prove his love, and there's all of the lance pieces that's just getting thrown on the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I kind of don't mind montages, so I didn't really think about it. They are done well in this movie. I agree with that. Is there any other movie where the montage is really good that you can think of?
I can't think of much.
What about like Rocky? That's like quintessential, right?
I don't think I've seen Rocky, honestly.
Neither have I. I just know.
Justin's just shaking his head whenever people haven't watched.
I just don't even know what to do with you guys. Like
Justin has just watched every movie in the world.
It's not that, right? Like don't get me wrong. My knowledge is not perfect or anything like that, but I feel like you guys come in here swinging your elbows, and you are missing significant chunks of either Americana or like actually watching good movies, Ben, or watching any movies, Andreas. Like and you're just like, well, it's no Fast and the Furious 1, but
being not from America.
Yeah, how's your Bollywood movies though? I mean, what else are you watching, my dude? Like,
I've watched a lot of Danish movies. How many Danish movies have you watched?
Wait, wait. Oh no, that's not Norway. Never mind. I've seen the Seventh Seal.
Not from
Does that count?
Which one?
What?
Seventh Seal?
Huh?
Is that Danish? The Seventh Seal. Ingvar Bergman.
The Seventh Seal.
All right, no. Cody has a good point. We should talk about the villain.
Right. Who is also perfect.
Right.
But
yes,
pretty all right.
He's wonderful. He's exactly what you need in this movie.
Right.
Quick thing before we go to the villain, which is great. The movie he mentions is, of course, black and white movies from the 50s. Like, of course.
It's like a classic international cinema. Okay, Justin. You just said that whole thing about you guys haven't seen good movies, and I feel like you're missing out on essential pieces of these are essential pieces of cinema.
I've
like
never seen
essential pieces of old cinema.
Of all time list.
Fine, but I do tend to restrict my movie watching to at least the decades that I was alive. I've gone a little bit out there.
You don't want me to do that.
I know you're too young to have this conversation, so you shush, because that's one of your gaps. But like, I've seen me some Nosferatu or Metropolis or whatever, but I don't go back. I don't spend a lot of time watching Casablanca and its peers. Okay, just because why? What am I getting out of that, and what am I comparing it to? Right? Like, there are times where I'll go back and watch the original one because we've had conversations about like True Grit. You know, you've got The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Like, you want to watch some good, Westerns, you go back to when Westerns were like the Marvel movies of the day. Now, there's an anachronism for you. Let's update the Westerns with like, anyway, we'll have Jonah Hex, which
They
didn't
kind
do
of
well,
did that, didn't they?
but,
Was it Hateful? No, Hateful Eight was that one? Like,
I mean, you
great
get some of
cast,
that, right?
decent.
But yeah, so, but yes, there are 100, 200 years worth of movies. The problem is, like, there's very little of anything at all to draw me to those movies. I'm not a film major and I'm not a director. I'm not going to go watch them for the study of it, right? I like particular genres, and I've watched many of the movies in those genres. I don't just go watch some 1950 Danish film because it's classic international cinema.
It was
Sorry.
Norwegian, and
That's-
I don't know what movie.
Oh,
Whatever.
Same thing.
So I barely eked out The Hurt Locker because it had Jeremy Renner in it and it was Academy acclaimed or whatever, but
Hurt
That
Locker.
that
was the
doesn't
first
make
movie
it
I
a
ever
good
saw with him in
movie.
it.
So
That was the first
I
movie I saw
really
with Jeremy
liked The
Renner
Hurt
in it,
Locker.
and I held it against him.
yeah, that's rough.
You don't like
See-
The Hurt Locker?
No, it was boring.
I don't agree. I liked it.
I mean, other than being a quasi documentary, like, don't get me wrong, like, the plight of this character is real and that sort of thing, but I'm not watching it for that, right? Like, the movie should be entertaining. If I want to watch a documentary,
Sure,
I will
mean,
do
there
that
are
without the
definitely-
fictional fluff.
There are
So-
different reasons and different mindsets to watch different kind of movies, and some movies are not for everybody. And it is not. It's not an
Perfect movies aren't for
entertaining
Ben.
movie. So we were going to talk about the villain, who was
Yes.
a great villain. The actor
Rufus
does it really
Sewell?
well. I have
Sewell?
not
I don't know
seen
how to
him in
pronounce his
enough.
name.
I feel like.
So
Right.
he was in Man from the High Castle thing. I don't remember if I
Yeah,
had the name right.
That's a
And-
little more recent, but yes.
Yeah, he was in Dark City. That was a really
Yes.
good movie.
That's a great.
He's
movie.
actually kind of the good guy in that, right? So
Yeah, he's the protagonist.
Right.
And then
All right, I've seen that a really long
so
time.
there's
ago.
another movie that was with Paul Bettany. It was called The Tourist. That had Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp in it. And Rufus Sewell's in it, but he's kind of this guy on the side, and he had a funny little part. He was fun in that movie just because he was on the side of it, but it happens to have Paul Bettany in it as well.
He's in The Illusionist. That's a good movie, but I don't know what he plays in it. I don't remember really.
that's one of those that I was like so confounded by the end. I definitely need to go rewatch it. So, like, The Illusionist and what was the other one that was like practically the
Prestige.
same movie? There you go. Yeah. So I knew it started with a P,
I mean,
but
I
he's
will
also in
disagree
Legend of
with you
Zorro.
on the practically.
Oh, yeah,
same
he was a bad
movie,
guy
but they
in
are
that.
both magician
They're a
movies.
whole lot fucking closer than Moulin Rouge and Knight's Tale. All right, so let's not
I don't know.
get
I
started
haven't
on
watched.
that.
I have self-respect, so I didn't watch Moulin Rouge. But
You do at
I'll
least
take-
know
I'll
the
take your
premise of
word
the
for it.
movie, right?
No.
Moulin Rouge?
Yes.
I don't know. Singing hookers?
I can't. That's all
I
I
mean,
know.
that's pretty
much.
fucking close.
Pretty
So you can see
close.
how that would be invoked in the conversation with the Knight's Tale because Geoffrey Chaucer and
He's in. Oh yeah, he's the bad guy, and surprisingly not as bad as I thought it was gonna be when I saw the title. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
What?
as I asked my friends who went to go see it like opening weekend, does the president of the United States hit a motherfucking vampire with an axe? Then you got your money's worth. So, yeah.
I mean, I will. It was.
If you
it was
expected more
actually
than
a pretty
that.
good- it's not a perfect movie, but like in terms of what it is, what kind
I
of
am the
movie,
director,
it
and
was-
I'm directing us back to talking about A Knight's Tale.
Oh.
And Rufus Sewell. Because-
Come
Whoa.
on.
Vetoed.
Yeah, because I love this movie and I want to keep talking about it, and specifically talking about Adamar. He did a very good job with this villain, perfectly what they needed to do, and he has very good acting abilities because he didn't get to. There's certain points he didn't get to say all that much to show how evil he is. He just his face changed in ways I can't even describe, and then he's just evil, and maybe his eye was switching. So it was great.
What I think is funny about the character, right, is like he's clearly the antagonist. He's clearly the bad guy, and you get like two more or less throwaway lines to show that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like a lot of the stuff that makes him a villain, it's just like period appropriate, right?
Yes.
Like talking about like she's a conquest and I've put in with her father to negotiate for her marriage, and she'll be broken and blah blah blah. Like,
Put her on my
unfortunately,
mantle.
exactly. That's a little acceptable up until like the 1950s, Ben, right? So so you've got some of that going on, but then you get his little line with like the gap he has in the movie because he's out fighting a war.
Yeah,
because he's actually a knight. That's the other thing that I kind of like got this movie is that William never hits the field. He only ever jousts, whereas this guy has been in battles,
So when he introduces himself to Jocelyn and has that first encounter with Ulrich and making fun of him for forgetting his name, which, yeah, it's not his name and it's a long one, but he was the head of the Free Companies. He was a mercenary. Like, yes, nice. And that's like when he didn't joust against the Black Prince took him out of the tournament, sent him away to do literal war, and then he got recalled to go back into the World Championship because he was raping and pillaging and burning churches, and yes, he was being a war criminal, and so
because he turned into Machiavelli. So
so the Black Prince ordered him to dissolve his armies.
Right,
he's that much of an asshole.
Right. Well, yeah, and that was the thing is like, but that was the only way he could get out of his duty to the prince was to do all of these terrible crimes so that he could be made a civilian so that he could joust against Henry.
But
like that
is crafty.
That's hardcore.
And made sure that he was going to lose the tournament because we knew that Ulrich would be there as well.
I mean, kind of yes and kind of no, right? Like the prince definitely paves the way, which is a great moment. And again, talk about great acting from this guy.
Yeah.
The prince nails it, in my opinion. And the whole scene with him actually getting knighted is definitely like one of the many crescendos in this movie. Mm-hmm. But like that's kind of the thing. It's like you paid me a kindness by A, jousting against me when no one else would, even though you knew who I was. B, keeping my honor intact when I got wounded in a subsequent joust, right? Or was it the same?
No, it was the other way around. So they had gone up against each other once, and he was wounded, and they drew because he never not finished before, and that gave him one kindness. And then that's the next time that they were going to see him. Adhemar was going up against Thomas Colville, and they expected it's going to be a really good joust against each other because both of them were in good form, and then Adhemar forfeited, and then he went up and did it. So he had two kindnesses for the Black Prince and got knighted.
Yeah, so then he actually gets knighted, and then William's able to go against Adhemar, who's been a sneaky douchebag with the spy and everything. But William still has to have the skill to pull it off, right? He just cleared the red tape.
Actually, the Black Prince did two things for him. He knighted him so that he was safe, and that's what he said. Like, it is my word, and therefore beyond contestation. What are those good lines?
Such a great line. Yeah.
And then he also set it up so that they would be going head to head against each other in the tournament and not miss each other.
Well, see, no, because I thought they were about to joust, and then that's when it came out that he was, well, you're right. He reinstated him in the tournament because he had forfeited and whatnot. Yeah, so you're right there. But yeah, the absolute authority that Edward delivers that line, is like, my personal scholars have found this thing, and it's like everybody here knows that it's bullshit, but which one of you is going to talk back to me because you're going in the stocks next because that's also my authority.
A cool movie detail is that how they even like tell us the viewer that this is definitely bullshit because like how the prince like goes down like, oh, we're both trying to be something we are not, and then he goes, he is a knight. Period. Enter. Anyone's going to question me? Nope.
Right.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Did they have world championships of jousting? Probably not.
Kind of.
I mean, they had tournaments, sure, but did they have a world championship?
I don't know.
One of those things that just seemed like, we're going to take it from like a hockey movie or something. Who cares?
I mean, another little detail that I had to look up because I was curious about that is like that whole, the chain boat, how they're like going across. That's actually probably at the Strait of Dover because that's only like 30 kilometers, which is 20 miles ish.
Yeah, except they actually arrived in London.
Yeah, that's it. It is actually a straight shot from arriving there to London, but it's still pretty. They wouldn't be able to see London like the way they do. Mm-hmm. So that was like that's for the movie, I guess.
Also, they had the Ferris wheel. Even though I looked out for it, I didn't see it, but it's included in the trivia. So,
Another
so
piece of trivia that
liberties.
I loved was when Chaucer does his first announcement of William or Ulrich, and once he was done, none of the extras said anything because they were from the Czech Republic and they didn't speak English. So that's what Mark Addy started going, yeah, off to the side. And they kept it because it was wonderful.
It's so great because it's like, you know that they had to have gotten cue beforehand, that it's like, he's going to go on a speech. You don't need to know what he says. But when he's done, cheer. And somehow they just don't get the program. And so he's just like, yeah.
And it works so well. I mean, like, I remember one of the first times I watched the movie when I was a kid, I was asking, why did it work out like that to my mom? It's like, well, because they didn't know what the hell he said. Like, even if he's speaking the same language, they might not have understood the complexity of what he was saying because they were commoners.
And that's how it comes across, right? Is that he's using such flowery language that like nobody knows what is. Like, are we supposed to be hyped right now?
The same when he's like to those guys, he's like, I will make you infamous through all of history, which then apparently he did.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why it's a perfect movie, Andreas. So
I don't know. I mean, again, I love The Knight's Tale, but I feel like it's one of the weaker ones we've seen so far.
No, what? No.
I love it. It's a good movie.
Compared to Goodfellas, you think it was weaker than Goodfellas?
Definitely weaker than Goodfellas.
No.
Again, like they're so different, you know. Like you've got to have some kind of baseline to be able to compare some of these against. Like I wouldn't compare this against Pirates and barely against The Mummy, you know. Like so.
So A Knight's Tale definitely has better montages than Goodfellas, which was the 2-minute like death sequence of everyone.
I don't know. That was a good montage.
I mean, I didn't dislike it in Goodfellas, but like, Knight's Tale's montages were better.
I mean, it is hard. It's just one we're talking about. Right?
Like, there's the initial training one. Which other one are you thinking of in terms of montage?
Well, I listed them earlier. There was the training one, the winning one, when he was getting losing deliberately for love.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That was cool.
And seriously, the music choice was wonderful. Like training montage with that like 9 to 5 song, I don't remember what it's called, but of like just kind of this daily grind. If you're putting up with a whole bunch of bullshit to be able to get through the day as he's being beaten and drowning and not being able to hit the damn target.
I mean, I think what lifts this movie up out of mediocrity into being. I mean, I'm not sure if I agree with perfect movie. It's a movie I watched a lot of times and I really like. Is you know, the music choices are amazing, the acting is they are really great, the casting is amazing, and otherwise I think it's like story wise it's not, you know, I mean it's whatever, it's okay, but it's really the acting, and I think a lot like the way they blend the music, that's really what elevates this movie for me.
I mean, some of the modernization that they did is very difficult in the dialogue because they kept some of the old dialogue, but they also made new they used new modern idioms as well. And so that took a lot of skill in terms of the writers of making sure that sounded right and the actors to make sure that they sounded right. But
I think the ratings probably also lifts it up quite a bit, but that's not something I don't know if I see that much, you know, like, but the director is the one who has the vision, right?
I think for this one, he was the main person behind it. Yeah.
No, but even then, even if someone else wrote a movie script, it's still the director who executes the vision, right? Usually, that's like Steven Spielberg. Then it's a Steven Spielberg movie, even if he didn't write the movie.
I don't know, director. Do you want to fill us in on what that's like? So.
I barely do my job. You guys said I don't know anything about it.
My favorite part about the movie is how it's filmed in color on film instead of like on the tapestry, you know, which is how it would have been done at the time. So I think that's pretty good. So. Oh man!
Speaking of tapestry, his first is what's it called? Tunic.
Yeah. Oh my god,
that's pretty good. No, this will make a fine tunic. No, I don't know how to dance. Oh well, I mean.
Yeah, so
I got a tunic for you, but the dancing part.
The lady's maid walks up, is like, what will he be wearing to the banquet tonight? I was like, but why do you need to know? So that she can dress to match him. And it like, they didn't understand that whatsoever. And then just like, Roland's character was just like, yeah, that's some fabric. It's going to be green with wooden toggles. Give me your knife.
Yeah, it took me like 2 or 3 watches to even catch that he's looking at the tent when he says that, right? Because he's just kind of like staring off into space, and it's like, what is he looking at? Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah. So and the dance learning, the whole thing. I mean, it's such a small thing in the movie of the dancing issue, but it was a lot of fun. Of like,
it's also great character though, right? Because Adamar's trying to pull a fast one on him. So they spend like the entire day learning how to fucking dance, again, crowdsourced. And then that's when they bring Claire in finally, because you're a girl, you must know how to dance, right? That's basically how they approached it in the movie.
Yeah.
Even though she's a blacksmith, but.
So the beginning of the dancing of like, it's Chaucer trying to teach them of William and Watt, and it goes badly. And then it's like, you can hit me all day because you punch like a what?
A girl. Yeah.
It's just the animosity between them is so good, and the timing of that, because they first insulted him, and then Watt's just like, and then he hits him, and it's like hitting right into the camera.
Right.
There are a lot of good character moments, like when they have to convince her to repair the armor, for example. It's also really great. Like, this is because they set up because of a girl. No, they said you're great with horseshoes, but bad with armor. The fact that you're a girl wasn't even brought up.
Right. Such a great subversion, across that whole thing. So, yeah. I mean, and I think that's why, like in the movie, like in the story, why the characters work is because they're all got maxed out charisma, but barely anything else. William obviously can fight, because he's even good with a sword, right? They mentioned that how that's his first thing, and that almost like carries them through the first several tournaments. Which again they kind of gloss over because that's not the glory of the joust, right? Because the joust is like the AAA tournament line or whatever, But yeah, like when he pulls these little fast ones on Claire, or even some of his initial Kate, when he pulls his initial stuff on Jocelyn, like some of the early stuff is his, and he's not universally good at it, which is also a good part of the character, right? Is that he just, something your horse's flanks. Like, my what? Your what?
Because the buildup of that, after the love letter that had been crowdsourced and so wonderful to her, and then she's like, I want poetry, give me poetry. He's like, my horse's flanks.
My horse's flanks.
Yeah. Well, and also, then it pulls back around because she says in the first joust, like, I don't remember if it's Adamar or somebody else, but they were like, I'm going to win the joust for you. It's like, you're going to win the joust for yourself. You're just saying it to me. But William's the only knight who hasn't pledged that he was going to win. And then like 3 or 4 jousts later, he's like, I'm going to win for you. Ha ha. It's like, no, that's not what she wants, And you see that again when, he's going to get arrested. She has fallen in love with him, not necessarily the lie, not the knight, not the jousting champion, but him. And so, yes, we can run, we'll live with pigs, whatever. And then, no, I'm going to get arrested and then knighted because that's how the world works. So
that was one of the things actually kind of, I had a little bit of an issue, but I guess, that depends on your viewpoint on it. I just saw his character development, like when he loses for love, when he chooses to lose, and swallow his pride. I saw that's like him putting his pride aside. But then later on in the movie, when it's not for love, he can't put his pride aside. Where I thought like I could see the development being that he had evolved to the point where he could put that aside. So the smart choice would have been to just dip.
Right.
Yeah, it is the smart choice, but he
got the girl he loves. Yeah, they got a lot of money. But he has to go anyway for his pride. It is very knightly though, in terms of on chivalry, and I will do this. But I just thought it was kind of counterintuitive to the development his character had taken a little bit.
It kind of depends, like, which part you're looking at, right? Because, like, he sells it to Watt and Roland that they are going to do it. They're going to make a couple of bucks, and then they can retire with way more than what they've got, right? That's the opening con. However, like you see in the flashback that the reason why he became a squire, like a page and then a squire at all, is because his dad wanted him to change his stars. So it kind of evolves that you see his true motivation is that he wanted to be a knight. And so like that's his dream. He doesn't give a shit about the money at the end. Everybody else does. Everybody else sees, let's keep our skins and the money. Whereas him, it was change your stars and whatever. So it kind of evolves your understanding as the movie comes.
Although the timing of when he's losing for love, and also when they had bet all of their money on him winning the tournament, is just that's why Watt was like, I'm gonna lose everything. It's like, that's why it's called gambling.
Right.
So like Roland really is like he's basically the sensible guy of the group, right? He's like, no, let's not bet. This is stupid. No, I'm not interested. And then they're like, oh, an Englishman can never beat a Frenchman one too many times. And Roland's like, oh, you're on. Jesus is English.
It's even better though because Jesus is English. Like the hell he is, but okay, So I was going to bring that up specifically too. Like the Pope is French, and I mean that part's true. But then there's like, Jesus was English. I'm like, how? Like England didn't even exist. So.
I know.
Oh man!
Probably something a commoner might just think.
No.
Well, it's also still kind of reflected in our society, right? How many churches do you go into with white Jesus paintings today?
I would assume that most of them understood the Holy Land was somewhere not England.
Right.
Because Chaucer even mentioned it, like he was supposedly at the Holy Land crying because of all the Saracen blood he had spilled.
Right.
Okay, so maybe Chaucer understood it and they didn't. I don't know. But they understood that the Holy Land was not there.
Yeah, but Jesus is English. That's
Jesus is
the way God intended it. So
if
in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and England. So yeah.
I love this movie.
It is a good. I have seen this movie many times.
Ben gives it a solid 3 out of 10. So here's an okay sports movie.
I feel like you're being a little harsh on Ben here.
Am I?
I
think
Ben,
so.
It's like it's an average.
Ben doesn't think I'm being too harsh. I mean, it's not nearly as good as Moulin Rouge as far as sports movies go. So
come on.
That's not what he said at all.
Come on.
I mean, I might be putting. I understood Ben more like it was an average movie. It was a 4 or 5, not a 3.
Yeah, I love cheese pizza. It's great. If I'm in the mood for cheese pizza.
Pizza feels
I don't
like
agree with Ben's movie tastes in general because all he ever
I don't agree
mentioned
with his pizza tastes either.
is apparently if I were to mention Ben's,
it's not my favorite. Cheese pizza is not my favorite. But
what's the analogy for black and white movies from the before 1950? Because that's like what Ben watches, apparently.
Old. So
a stale, moldy pizza.
Stale. Hang on. You know what? Just because of that, I'm going to come up with the movie that you will have to admit is ahead of its time. Great movie from 1950s early. I'll think
that'll be a tall order. I mean, unless again you're going to do sci-fi or fantasy, which basically didn't exist in those time frames.
When was 12 Angry Men from? Like what year was that from? It's black and white, right?
I mean, there are movies that
1957.
Past
so
20 years.
It doesn't count. He said before the 1950s.
Well, that was a movie that was ahead of its time.
Well,
right?
see, the thing is, it's not even. That's with one arm behind my back. Like I branch out to the 1960s and even the 70s sometimes.
So what do you got in here? Is My Fair Lady your pick? Because I'm looking at the other
those
movies,
so
right?
Great. That's so great.
Yeah.
Dude, why is it old movies is so much your thing? What's the appeal?
Well, you know what? Honestly, it was all a thing when I was growing up to watch like TCM and that sort of thing, and I would like Turner Classic Movies. It's a broadcast cable. It's a cable.
Oh, so
channel.
you like the Lifetime movies? I got you. That's why that came up.
No, I don't like the Lifetime movies. No, thank you.
My Fair Lady's 1964, so you're gonna have to try again. So.
You said before the 50s, but it turns out
with one hand behind your back.
Well, that's one hand. That's one hand behind. That's one hand behind my back. You know what? there are plenty of great movies, but I'll think on it. I'll think on it. I'll try to. I know I only have one shot. I know I only have one shot, but I'll think about it.
Don't throw it away, though.
Oh,
Don't throw away your shot. Just no.
I mean,
Okay.
I understand, especially if you're into movie history and you know how movies progressed. I get it. I get the significance of older movies, but in terms of watching a movie in 2021, I
being
mean,
entertained.
And you
and
can't
being
even do Ten
entertained.
Commandments. That would have been a shoe-in. So,
Eh.
1956. That's a bummer.
and
So.
I even by probably by a lot of people's standards, I like older movies. Like I like movies from the 80s. And like that's probably because like I don't think a lot of people in
Why
their
am I
30s,
so old?
but I don't think people in their 30s are like gonna go, yeah, let me watch a movie from my roommates are like, oh no, it's too old whenever anything before 2010.
What?
This is too old.
Get better people in your life. Like, dude, I get some things where, like, you know, look, Jason the Argonauts, right? Love that movie, but you know, maybe if you're aesthetic, right, that you got a tough time with the stop animation or whatever. But Jesus Christ, there were modern graphics before 2010, right? Like,
Sure, okay, it was
1994, we had
it was
fucking Jurassic
hyperbole,
Park,
but there
you
is
know?
some sort of cutoff where I'm not sure where that is, but we're basically,
No, I
especially
can-
one of them.
I can
is,
understand that there's a cutoff.
too
It's
old.
probably somewhere before 75. It's hard for me to think of a movie before 75 I liked.
Oh no, for them
because,
it's
like-
way late. It is definitely 90s or late early 2000s.
Oh, wait, so does he not
That's
like
around
Star
there.
Wars or Alien?
He doesn't want to watch the old Star Wars. They're too old and look bad.
Get better people in your life. There you go, Wizard of Oz. Come on, Ben, that's a slam dunk. Like,
Hey, it had
I'm
color.
going to choose it now. I'm
It had
going
color.
to try to choose a movie that take you by surprise. I'm going to
Yeah.
try.
that's not even going to be hard. I mean, Citizen Kane's in here. So regardless of what it is, any of the movies that I recognize is not going to be on the list because Ben's going to be like, we're
So-
going to watch, hold on, let's do
Justice just sabotaging him now. I'm just going to mention as many great movies before the 50s
Mildred
that
Pierce.
people
Like,
know. So
You know
they
what?
can't bring
Mildred
them
Pierce is
up.
all right. Mildred Pierce. It's not what I would select, but it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
The Magnificent
Justin just
Emersons.
quickly Googles top
Right.
movies from the 1950s or earlier.
Well,
So they can
obviously,
mention all of
yeah.
them.
best movies before 1950. I got a list from IMDb with like 100 movies on it. So some of them I even have heard of before. You know, there you go. Let's do Ben-Hur. That isn't that one like 5 hours? So
I thought that was
come on.
after 50.
That's a long movie. Jesus Christ.
there's a Ben-Hur,
there's
A
like
Tale of the
five.
Christ,
There's
1925.
There's
So,
5 Ben-Hur movies, and like 2 of them are silent. So I will not choose any of the 5
Oh.
Ben-Hur movies.
I'm okay with silent movies.
Speaking
Some of those
of,
are okay. Like,
I'll fall asleep.
Speaking of movie lengths, rewatching A Night's Tale since it's been a while, I was actually surprised about the length of the movie, especially for when it came out.
right.
It's
was
a
not really a thing.
surprisingly long movie for how wonderful and fast it feels. Like I mean, the slow points are meant to be slow, and you don't feel bored.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean,
It's
unless
like
you're
the
Ben.
pacing was, in my opinion, perfectly done.
You know, Ben gets halfway through his cheese pizza and he's kind of bored with it. Don't want more cheese pizza. But I was just surprised that it wasn't that long because, you know, it's more of a thing now to have 2-hour movies. It was not so much a thing at the time.
Right. Yeah, it was like an hour and a half for bust, you know.
Yeah,
Like-
and that was like a movie theater thing, right? Because they wanted to show X amount of movies. It's still a thing. They've just compromised more, I think. Because storytellers want to tell longer movies.
Well, not just that, but like look at all the billion-dollar movies that were made and how many of them are under 2 hours. Like, I think the movie theaters are okay with that. So,
If they actually get enough portions of that $1 billion.
well, sure. I mean, it depends, right? They get like $3 out of the 12, you know, for a Disney movie or something like that. So,
I haven't been to a movie theater.
It's really the
in a really
popcorn
long time.
that makes the money, right? At
yeah.
least here. Oh boy.
Well, when it's got like a 1,500% markup, yeah. So,
Yeah. It's funny. We had a journalist go talk to like the biggest chain of movie theaters here in Denmark. It's like, okay, so if we were to take, you know, a hot dog, it's not technically a hot dog, but I'll say a hot dog for you guys, and say we applied the same principles to a hot dog that you apply to popcorn, it would be like $50 or something like that. He says like some like really high amount. Do you think that's
Right.
would you pay that for a hot dog? And he's like, no, I probably wouldn't.
Right.
It's a pretty funny how he sets it up. So like how because their movie theater tickets are rather expensive compared to other people, but they can get away with it. So, though I've never been there.
Yeah, for you guys it'd be Donor, right? Or Donor Pizza. So would you pay $50 for Donor?
Donor. No, it is kind of a hot dog. It's a baguette hot dog. You take
what?
half a baguette, you poke a hole in it, and you put a sausage in it.
So baguette is French bread, just
It's just like, what are you doing to the hot dog? You're sticking it in a baguette. No, they have hot dog buns. They make bread specifically for hot dogs.
Yeah,
In
we
America,
also
they
have
do.
hot dogs. This is Denmark. We are kind of known for hot dogs, but that's
Wait,
also a thing.
But Denmark is known for hot dogs?
Yeah,
Why?
Danish hot dog. Google it.
No, don't. It'll make me
why?
gross.
Well, because like all good things, it was invented in Germany, and then everybody else made it better. So, yeah. Like the French invented sex, but the English introduced it to women.
The amount of shit I gotta listen to on behalf of my country. Oh no, wait, Denmark is the same thing. Oh, the Germans did it better. Oh, where are you from again? Finland?
I mean, not Vikings though. You guys were pretty solid on Vikings, so
Yep. Well, anything else about A Knight's Tale we should talk
It's
about?
wonderful. It's perfect. Go watch it.
It's not perfect, but it's
Yes,
a
it is.
wonderful, great movie. I don't agree. It's just
Well, then you
But it
can
is
go
very
get in the
good.
Ben corner.
You've been
way
banned.
more to listen. This is what's wrong with politics today too. I disagree with you a little bit, and then I'm the opposition. I'm like 90%
It's
towards you.
perfect. There is no compromise. If there's compromise, it wouldn't be perfect.
Exactly. No, this
So
isn't all or nothing, black or white, yes, no, on off situation. It is
we're not
perfect.
leaving this
But it's
until we
it's
agree on which Dresden book is ranked to.
But the way
This will be a 5-hour episode if it has to be until Ben
The way
agrees
this-
that there was pepperoni on this pizza.
this segment works is only you can't all agree that it's never going to happen. That we're all like, this is a perfect movie. Yep, because we're all different people.
We kind
Probably
of,
doesn't
but
happen.
we did. We've had
We have.
several of those.
Yeah, we've all kind of
Who
agreed.
didn't like the Mummy, Ben? Did you not like the Mummy?
I like the Mummy.
See,
But I'm just saying,
who doesn't like Knight's Tale, Ben?
you bring your perfect movie and we talk about it, right? Like I don't expect all of you to think The Goodfellas is a perfect movie, but I'll fight you for it because it is a perfect movie to me.
I acquiesce that I understand why you might think it's a perfect movie, but it's not in my wheelhouse, for me to say, yeah, okay. I mean, sure, like as far as gangster movies go, absolutely, but I'm not comparing it to Moulin Rouge, which would still be a closer, comparison than fucking Knight's Tale. But
Moulin Rouge is.
I've never watched it. Don't think I ever will. Moulin
Yeah.
Rouge.
put it on the list. Then
I
you
will
will.
watch Princess Bride though.
That's good.
Should
Should we
that be
just
the
do
next
that
one?
next time? Right?
Might
To just
be,
get it out of
yeah.
the way.
Then I'll
Like-
finally watch it.
Yeah, then you'll understand the map reference
In,
in old days.
in the first 5 minutes, I think you'll understand all the reasons why you should love Princess Bride if you're paying attention, because really Grandpa sets it up best. So,
Yeah.
It's got everything. That's why. So,
Yeah, it's
I
good.
believe it.
All right. So we'll put Princess Bride on for 2 weeks from now.
sounds
That's
good.